Welcome back. My question today for you is, what's more important to you? What's more of an importance for an online, ever-evolving game? Is it progression or is it content? Because, let's be frank, players don't quit games because there's nothing to do. I generally believe they quit because things stop meaning as such. Progression is separate from my previous video direction. It's a promise that the game makes to the player. A promise that it tells you that your time matters and what you're really building towards, because you want to have something later on in such a game. For Destiny, it's what's the next god roll? Is the next soulless, flawless title, contest emblem clear? The next moment that really makes you stop and go, yeah, I earned that. Now, when a game breaks that promise, when the progress gets reset, it's replaced, or it's even devalued, what I believe is exactly happened for Destiny over the last couple of seasons, maybe years if you want to go back that far. The majority quietly stop caring, really, the majority of the player base, and eventually they just leave. Before we talk about what progression should be, and one idea I've got for progression within Destiny 3, it's important to be clear about what is progression and what isn't progression. Progression isn't just a number, just increasing, going up. And we've had entire seasons where the core loop was essentially just the power number being rolled back, and then you could just have to make it go up again. And it's all there so we can earn a sweet, sweet key to the chest at Grandmaster Nightfall. That's not progression, that's more content control within a live service game. You need to compare this example probably with Destiny 1. Think about when Vault of Glass dropped and how you actually increase through your levels. Now, we are going some years back, so bear with me if I'm a little bit wrong on this. I think you had to be around level 26, 27 to enter the Vault of Glass raid. And to get to that end game of level 30 to max out your character in Destiny 1 Year 1, I believe you need to get the gear from the actual raid, or you had to get some sort of cores or materials from the raid to put in your armor that you currently have to get up to that level. And it made you go into the end game, it made you see what this is all about. And we all know, anybody that's played D1 or the Alpha Destiny 1 vets, when that first raid dropped, it was a little bit different to this period of time. But the question is which did you really prefer? Because compared now's progression to back then in Destiny 1, is there an argument? And is there elements along the way that you would have preferred or stayed? But that's what I mentioned in my direction video. But progression just isn't loot drops. Let's be honest, most weapons that you probably earn now just get glanced at and just instantly dismantled. And it's not because they're bad, they're irrelevant at the moment they drop, so you just bin it off. And when reward doesn't really have an identity or a long-term value, it stops feeling like progress. And you need to think of progression as not the seasonal loop or grind either. Some seasonal seasons and expansions definitely have been a little bit more meaningful. I cast my mind back to the strand fragments, or I can't remember the currency that you had to get, where you didn't directly go and earn them in a certain activity. They were point blank there for you for the length of time that you played with that subclass, with any strand weapons at the time. So you could earn more things for the subclass. That is actually a well thought out idea. Maybe a bit lazy in execution for Lightfall, but far too often seasonal progression just exists within the singular season alone. And when the season ends, the meaning behind the grind just finishes. You need to think of progression as probably a sense of momentum. You need to move forward correctly, and you need to have that belief again that time has mattered. And more importantly, especially for a live service game, you need to have a reason or a want to actually log back in tomorrow. So how we progress in Destiny is ultimately to the direction of the game, and that's where direction and progression come hand in hand. You can't really separate the two. And that's what I really want to talk about today, is what the future could look like and what I would like the future to personally be like for myself. Because if we do ever see the life of day within a Destiny 3, it's now the beginning of a new era. And the biggest unanswered question isn't the content, it's the commitment, really. How long does Destiny 3 look like? Is it 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? Is it another 10 years? Because, again, think back to where you were when Destiny 1 first released, or when you got into the world of Destiny, to where you are now. How many hundreds of great games have released within that time frame, and how many hours you've played within Destiny. And ask yourself, was there a time, at any period, you thought, I wish I was playing this game right now, however, I need to do this, instead of, I want to do this? Destiny has always asked for long-term commitment, but the issue is it's not really designed as such. The progression is very temporary, and it sort of contradicts exactly the vision of what they want, and that's the heart of the problem. So let me ask you another question, and there'll be a lot more questions within this video, I do believe, so answer as and when in the comments if you can. So, what actually kept you playing Destiny for hours and hours on end, or repeatedly log back in the next following day? Was it the loot? Was it finally beating raid challenges? Was it just logging on to see the weekly story? I know some individuals that genuinely do that. The Tuesday reset comes along, they log on, they see where we're at, listen to the little tidbits of lore and information that's being fed to you, do the one activity, log off. Or do you log in every week just to go flawless in trials? Because whatever the answer is, were you actually enjoying your time when you're doing that? Because I definitely wasn't when I was trying to climb that lighthouse, I'll tell you that right now. I'm not a good PvP player at all. Or let me push this on to the community, is every single teammate that I've ever had on PvP, it's all your fault. It's never mine. It's never mine. No accountability here. I asked this question because I've played Destiny long enough, and I've had a regular groups, and if you're chronically online, such as myself, you start to notice something really within the Destiny community. A lot of people play this game generally on Autopilot, is how I can explain it. They log in, they grind, and they complain. And then they say they're just not enjoying it. And on the surface, it just makes no sense. Why would you ever play something that you just don't enjoy? Just turn it off, uninstall, go away. Think of it as a corporate point of view. If you're not buying a product, if you're not spending your money to buy a product, that product won't be on sale any longer. It's the only way in a capitalistic world that we are currently in. You show player numbers for video games. But if you invested the same amount of time into Destiny as I have, you do generally understand why players do this. Because it's not about letting go, because letting go isn't just that simple. You don't want to walk away from something you've poured years into. And when progression stops feeling rewarding, people tend to do that. Because the answer can't be that you're wiping the slate clean. I'll be honest, it'll feel incredibly hollow for Destiny 3 to actually strip back everything to the bare bones. You need to think of when you loaded up Destiny 2 and you're running around in white gear. A lot of the history that mattered and the years that have gone, especially the time that's gone from Destiny 2 to would-be Destiny 3 compared to the first two installments. Waiting for Bungie to finally release your favourite exotic again because they didn't believe it should be in the base game. Would you even want that? Is another question. So let's get back onto the three broad groups that I coined in my previous video, the directional video, the casual, middle ground, and the hardcore player base. Because casual players want more visible progress without burnout, as I think I mentioned. And they're often accused of wanting everything handed to them on a silver platter. But honestly, that mindset really goes across the whole player base within Destiny. You'll find groups of individuals that just want everything at will. The difference between the casual player base is the respect of their time spent within the game. They can't play every day, so they need to have something to show for that compared to other players. And the hardcore players, I understand the complete opposite end, but ideally over anybody else, they want the mastery of the game. Think of the hardest of hardcore players that have managed to solo raids, two-man raids quite frequently. They do things out of the ordinary. Think back to the last, I believe it was the Call of Arms event, and we had the Flaming Helmet award, and you always saw that number just keep creeping up on solo ops and the coil, because people were pushing the limits. They are the hardest of the hardcore, trying to get over and over. I believe I saw a thread on Reddit at once where Esoteric, the content creator, did a guide, and some guy put a post up saying I've beaten his score. Then a day later you saw another post saying I've beaten the guy who's beaten Esoteric, and it just carried on and on and on. Not all the time that they will be hardcore as such, but they're the ones that are wanting that extra challenge. They have designed and created a challenge within the game because they want to progress to that point of beating someone's set score. That is a term of progression. But back to the hardcore player base, they thrive on that long-term investment, really. That challenge is the key thing, and pushing the systems to the limit. That's what I'm trying to summarize. And they do sort of drift into gatekeeping about Destiny and the requirements of mastery within the game. It is healthy for any live service to have levels, different levels. Think of professional sports where you go from one bracket to another bracket, and if you ever have been in any professional standpoint in your life, you would understand there are levels to this game. There's a reason people say that saying. But you've got the middle ground, lastly, within the three, and I believe they are the largest group within Destiny 2. And that depth within the game, they don't want to be needless, is the key thing. They want the systems that provide the aspirational goals to be meaningful and not temporary. That's the key thing. They don't want it to replace next season because they'll increasingly get frustrated. I think we'll be on season 28 plus, nearly into 30 probably, if you count these expansions as seasons. And each seasons that goes, it just ticks away at that lifespan of the middle ground. With progression and the three groups, it's not that they're incompatible with each other when the goals that you're trying to set. It's that progression often swings far too hard into one direction, and that's where it creates that rift and foundational tear between each group, because somebody won't be able to invest properly into what they want because it's been stripped back and made easier. Or the complete opposite, it's made even harder. Or for that middle ground, it's just out of reach because you need to put so many hundreds of hours in the game. Back to the Triumph, where you had to kill 250 ruffians in Season of the Plunder. It was just time commitment. So, what Destiny gets wrong about the rewards is a good question to ask. And for me, you need to start with RNG because random drops are fine. In fact, actually, they're a little bit more than fine. It is a looter shooter after all, and they should be within the game. But that chase, that surprise, the moment when something finally drops is generally the DNA of Destiny since day one. The problem with RNG in Destiny, it's not that it exists, it's how it's used. And the issue, I believe, shows up in two different ways for RNG. And the first one is if it's the only path forward and you've been chasing for something for weeks, for months, and there's just zero way to influence that. And we've all been there within the game. You need to improve your odds one way or another, and you need a visible sense of progression that you can see to get to that point. And when the game doesn't provide you that, and you're just relying on finishing that game mode, you get a pile of loot, and I mean pile in completely every other looter shooter known to man except for Destiny. You only get 2 tokens in a blue. For me, it starts to feel like gambling. And this is why people gravitated towards solo ops within Edge of Fate, because it's that quickest way to get that loot drop, to get that gambling pull, to get that loot. And once something feels like gambling, it's just gambling mechanics are manipulative and addictive by nature. That's the point of these things. They generally need to be used carefully and transparently, and more importantly, in moderation. You can't have it as the backbone of a progression system. Think of how many times you've tried to get gauntlets on your arms in the old prime engram system. The solution for this, I believe, is agency, because Destiny already flirts with the idea in a way. It's never really fully committed to it. Raids and dungeons, as I mentioned before, have the triumph system, and you have that increased chance to earn that exotic. And the philosophy should extend to near enough every part of the game. Imagine that you're earning a weapon, and it wasn't about repeating an activity endlessly. It's about engaging around the system too. So my dream is for a Destiny 3 is picture the collections tab. Not as a near useless pit of guns and armour, instead it's more of a functional tool. You load up a weapon, you select it, and you can see these exact things. So the base drop chance, the perk pool, the odds of a certain perk combinations, and here's the key part, you're able to influence all that information too. Maybe you can select one perk on the weapon and you can have that as a slight increased chance to make it more appealing to chase. Not guarantee it, but you don't want to break the grind. You just want to nudge the odds in your favour a little bit. Think of exotic class items and how that worked with going to the Ghost on the Pale Heart, select a certain aspect of it, and I think it was a 50% chance usually you would get that one perk within the two in class items that you weren't. Maybe if crafting never came back, you could use a sort of new currency, and of course make it quite rare. You need to make it that endgame chase, and you select a weapon, then next time that weapon is guaranteed to drop with one or two of the selected perks that you have chosen. And that's where you have this more importance of this currency that comes in. That is an end game proper currency. You're just not leaving in your vault, leaving in your bank just to put into some armor, and then you just have to go to a normal activity and roll. You're still grinding, you're still engaging with the system because you've got this collections tab now, but you're shaping your own outcome. And above all else, Bungie, you need to tell us the drop chances of every single weapon in the game and what activity would have more increased chance of dropping this to. Again, back to the raid and dungeons example. Yes, I have an increased chance to get this raid exotic, but just tell me what it is. Is it gone up to a 0.1%? Has it gone up to 1%, 10%? I would like more transparency. More WoW games are legally required to have this in some regions, I believe in the EU. And if Destiny is going to lean into the heavy RNG aspect within Destiny 3, they need to be just as transparent, because transparency doesn't really kill excitement. It builds that trust between me, the player, you, the company. Because even if I don't get the drop today, I know there could be a chance of me getting it by X value. Or give me an aim to increase those odds, and I can see them odds increasing. That's a slight progression, and it'll feel meaningful for someone such as myself. You're not just pulling a lever in the dark and hoping for the gods to rain every single god roll onto you. So the second point in regards to the RNG issue that I've got is it doesn't have a well thought out brother or sister mechanic either. It needs a partner that rewards time and effort and the intention, really. And the thing is, Destiny already has this, and you're going to learn this a lot in these future videos. I'm a big advocate with crafting, but in a different way of how it was provided to us. This is where you need to have Destiny 3, a looter shooter and a collection shooter. So, crafting should be the place where long-term players of all skills go to finish their chase, where effort eventually replaces luck, and progression is not really, well, it is earned, but it's not rushed. There's a deeper version of the system that I'll definitely talk about in a future video. I would like to show you some artistry effects on the UI and whatnot, but I'm not that good. So It'll require a fair bit of editing. It's definitely one for the future. But the principle is simple. Crafting does simply one thing incredibly important compared to RNG, and it bypasses FOMO. It allows players to earn their god rolls on their own timeline. The restricted timeline you can have currently is all dependent on how long the season lasts, or how long a certain weapons within the pool, loot pool. It allows players to earn their god roll within their own time, and you usually have a restricted timeline at this period of time for loot across the board per season. I talked to 2 people on Fireteam Finder the other day, running a mission with them on Ultimate, and they were relatively new to the game. They were around just hit the 500 mark, and they were just a bit sad and gutted that they were unable to get the previous season's pinnacle set, the one where you quick fire and you can get some health back. My idea, you want to stretch them timelines away. You just want to get rid of a said restriction, and this is how you can do it, because even when the season's not active or a vendor's rotation that week doesn't have that roll that you need, or the gun that you require, you can make the system become permanent, and that is the key thing. If someone wants to complete a series of small challenges, because that's what you've decided crafting should be, they can pick up the weapon that they're trying to earn, they master it, they invest into it, and that should really lead to somewhere meaningful, because there should still be a way for you to earn that loot from them previous seasons. So imagine you're able to select these older weapons into that collections, and you can pick out a set of daily or weekly activities, and it'll let you target farm these. Over time, you can earn their crafting progress and work towards the weapon without the pressure of now or never. Personally, I love collecting the red borders. I'll be honest, once crafting existed, me and majority of probably the player base did the exact same thing. We ignored every single random drop, and we dismantled everything automatically because we only cared about hitting them 5 red boxes. And that's not how I want the system to be structured. Instead, I love crafting to move away from red borders entirely. And you need to think of it as you have one key weapon, you've loaded up, you put it into your mastery, and this is the weapon that you are working with. You can now pick up a different weapon that you have looted, and you can take a perk, you can take a barrel, you can take a tray from that weapon that you've just looted and put it on that master version of your crafted weapon. Obviously it'll cost things for you, glimmer, materials, time. Think of it as like fluted barrel, you strip it, you put it on, fantastic. Jolted feedback, you can do the exact same thing. Each time you select a perk though on the new looted weapon that you've got, it just entirely breaks it down and dismantles it with no resources. You get that little thing that you've extracted from the weapon. So you can't strip it for multiple things, because that's game breaking if you're aiming for that way. You're not shortcutting a grind, you're refining it. Division 2 has mastered this concept, but this is the important part, and this is the bit that matters a lot. You can't give anything away for free. You can't have a repeat of the late stage crafting that we have at the end of every season. I believe that they do a 2-week crunch where you can earn a red border a day, or when I can go and waddle up to a vendor and dump 99 engrams in, and I'll get all my god rolls and armor and every single piece that I required just for stocking. If the system hands out perfect rolls later, it undermines every player's time investment from the weeks before it, and you need to allow people to earn them properly. But over effort, time, and their own progression, there needs to be something meaningful to get that. Dumping 99 engrams into a seasonal vendor is not meaningful. Now, think of Xur. Xur's successors, if you're looking at Destiny 3, and they show up with a god roll of the sniper that you were looking for. Fantastic, that's exciting, you can use it, you can enjoy it. But with this system in mind, this new crafting system, you need to have like a term called fragile, where that gun that you have got is within its own limit. The moment you touch it or you try and break it down, you don't get any materials for it, and you can't get any of the perks, any of the barrels, any of the traits within that weapon. That's how you save the crafting through the RNG. Because importantly, you want to get a reward, but you don't want everybody to bypass it as well. Progression isn't just about the guns, the loot. There's other rewards within Destiny, and then other matters of investment that require just equals is of importance, really. How powerful is your character throughout the season, throughout the expansion, throughout the game cycle? What have you actually accomplished within that time frame? 2 titles, triumphs, badges. The same checklist on the surface, but it's a powerful markers of time, mastery, and the commitment. And eventually, it all leads to Destiny's true endgame, fashion. I like to think progression is like a graph. You've got an X and a Y axis. And if the progression moves along one of these axes harder than the other, it isn't really healthy. It needs equal growth on both, or a bit stagnated, but you've got the same trend that's going from the beginning to the end. And it's funny enough, exactly what you think Bungie would love to see with player engagement, just that steady increase, all happy and hunky-dory. On one axis, you've got your traditional progression loop, power build, direction. And getting that refined and working properly is essential, but it only really solves half the problem. Now, on the other axis, you've got depth, your long-term investment, your systems that don't end, but expand. And that's where Destiny has always struggled. I briefly touched on my idea about this in my video on direction. And it's the concept of being able to freeze a weapon in time. So you roll the dice on that piece of gear, and that fundamentally alters it. So it's something closer to an exotic, and it's personal to you, the player. And this is the kind of system that lives firmly in the endgame of a looter shooter type. Because it's not about chasing the next replacement, it's about deepening what you already have. Apply this random endgame currency to it, you completely randomize the exotic style trait. And once you have that weapon, it's locked in time, there's no rerolls, there's no undo. And that choice matters. Now imagine a single hand cannon that has like 20 of these endgame type traits. That's a huge amount and potential investment within the game. Now scale that up. 50 different weapons, armor pieces, subclass fragments, each with their own pool of these unique transformative traits, these endgame traits. You're not meant to collect them all. And that's exactly the point. That's endless progression. Not because the number keeps going up, but because the possibilities are growing. They're expanding greater, like the universe. It just keeps going. You're not chasing a completion. You're just chasing what you want your Guardian's identity to be at that time. And yes, on the surface, it does sound like it completely goes against my idea of Destiny being a collection shooter. But actually, it's how you tap into a different type of grinder, the completionist. If the activities themselves are fun, they're engaging, they're expansive. Personally, I would love to pursue this kind of grind alongside the traditional loot collection anyway. You still earn the weapons, but you just make them yours. They're personal shaped vessels, and they're just not roles within a game. Of course, the balancing within this would be extremely difficult, absolutely. But if it's done properly, it opens the doors to endless build opportunities, crafting, long-term expansion and experimentation. And honestly, it digs right into what Guardians are all about, that unpredictable, controlled chaos. So it perfectly goes hand in hand. That said, it falls apart completely if it's lazily implemented. And we've already seen what that looks like with a lot of Destiny and the random chest farming for exotic class items. It's not progression, it's just repetition, and it's very boring repetition of that. So imagine we're in a world, you're doing something and you have a chance of getting one of these endgame currencies. You're doing some strikes, you're doing PvP, even patrols, endgame. Everything feeds that system. And that transparency matters too. It tells you the drop rates of this, because you would expect a patrol would only have a 0.0001%, whereas trials, you are on your 7th win, ready to go to that lighthouse, and you win that match. Because you've won that match, you should have a 20% chance of getting something like this. And if I was Bungie as well, you could sort of move into how you design the game currently, and you can make it a little bit better, because they always wanted to funnel individual players into certain aspects within the game, and you can increase the drop rates for this end game currency within PvP for the week, because that's the flavor of this week. You can move it into them GM Nightfalls, or you can put a spin on something like patrols. You can do. You just need to have a bit more of a creative mind and experiment a bit more, see what works, see what doesn't work. Because when progression feels flexible, visible, and more importantly, fair across the board, players won't feel forced to go into these activities. They would genuinely just choose to join them. There's one last thing I want to touch on. It is triumphs. I will speed through this one. I was doing my notes earlier and I was thinking this is a lot more than my directional video, and I did mention I wanted these videos to be a bit shorter and not an essay. So what I want for triumphs is they're an equally important part of progression too, and they should absolutely keep them, and they should keep them as that like checklist type system. But what I want triumphs to be is just a little bit more pop, because I have got a lot of triumphs that are unfinished, and I like to think I'm a completionist. I try and get 1,000 gamer score, all trophies in every game that I try and purchase where I can and if I have time. But there's a lot of triumphs within Destiny just unfinished. And why? Because I can tell another Guardian, or my triumph score is more than yours, just to make another number within the system go up. It's not meaningful progression. It's just a leaderboard without the leaderboard. And there's no reward on this invisible leaderboard that we're on. And this is where you need now the triumph system to come hand in hand and provide and feed something a little bit more incentive to the players too. So I've spoken to plenty of players that generally lose their mind over shaders, armor piece, ornaments, and emblems. Emblems, the biggest one, because players show off what they've done and how they've spent the time within the game. I do strongly disagree against microtransactions, because corporations are not going to go anywhere. And this is where I feel like strongly that triumphs should now include Eververse. Now, you're probably thinking, how does that come into play? Bright Dust. It needs to be a more useful currency. And Eververse needs to minimal sell 80% of everything that's on there. Has to be earnable within the game. You can keep that 20% if you really want, because I do believe Bungie will never move away from the microtransaction and game. It does earn them money. Bright Dust and Triumphs though, because you can have it all bleeding into this long-term progression, this ecosystem. Because if I knew that this armor set was going to come up in a week's time, and I just need that little bit of extra Bright Dust, you've got two things. I can seek the harder challenges, you can make them extremely difficult too, that gives me them big boosted numbers. But you can also have the little earnable ones that just a slight just reward, and you'll feel good that you're able to spend something for real money's worth as something digital too. So I kill 1,000 enemies with void grenades. I'm going to do that naturally. It will happen. But when it pops up, and it does happen, and it gives me 10 Bright Dust, and I only need another 20 Bright Dust now to earn this next Ghost Shell, happy days. I am now more invested, and I'm more invested to seek out more triumphs. And you can have endless triumphs to feed this system too. You need to work it as how they've done with orders at this currently time. They've done really well with the orders. The issue is there's still a limit on that Bright Dust. Unlock the limit. Give us something that's worth meaning while. Give us something for us to buy and get more armor sets easily and earnable within the game. You need to let players choose to invest either their time or the money not exclusively behind a paywall for this sort of stuff. And that's how you stop triumphs becoming that checklist filler, and it just feels more real. Not just proof that you've played, but proof that you've actually accomplished something and you've got something sweet like this new arm ornament. Thanks for listening, and if you disagree with anything I've just said, happy to be challenged. Please put a comment below. And if you agree with anything, tell me what you believe the progression should look like within Destiny 3. Do you want crafting in there? Do you want heavy RNG? Do you want this endgame currency for endless scenarios of weapons and armor that you can create? Let me know. And that's the point. That's the conversation that we're trying to have. So please, all of you, enjoy your morning, your afternoon, and your evening, and I'll talk to you next time.